Welcome to the inaugural meeting of the Community Wellbeing Committee. I'd also like to welcome along our virtual viewers as well. And because we're a Wellbeing Committee, I'd just like to acknowledge the devastation in the North Island at the moment. There's been a loss of loved ones and lifestyles and total devastation in some areas. So we send them our heartfelt sympathy. Thank you. The Community Wellbeing Committee will meet 3 monthly, and it is a platform for iwi and community engagement, which will include also some external agencies and their presentations. So the format is actually to shape the council decision making around items that are important to our community that will feed into our long-term plan. An example is item 1 that we have on the agenda today, that is an idea that's been put forward by Mark, and we will hear about that shortly. Also, it would be really great in the manager's reports to have some ideas and discussion points to generate some of the community engagement that we would like through this committee. So with that, I'd just like to call for apologies, please. There are no apologies to this?
Sorry, Glenys. There will be an apology from either Councillor Stringer or Councillor McDonnell if they're on this committee. Neither of them are?
No.
Thank you.
No apologies. Do we have any conflicts of interest as we'll be discussing finances? No conflicts of interest. Is there any urgent late business? No urgent late business. Well, first up, I'd just like to ask for nominations for a deputy chair to take this position, if I'm unavailable. Is there any offers of being a deputy? Okay.
Pregnant pause.
Pardon?
Pregnant pause.
It is. So, Councillor Reid, would you be interested in being my deputy?
Oh, thank you, Councillor Dixon, but at this stage I possibly not with work commitments. Thank you.
Okay. Oh well, we'll just... Councillor Hovell.
If I can assist, under the Local Government Act it is not mandatory to have a deputy. It's more convenience in terms of if you are not here, who then sits in the chair, and if there is no deputy, then those people present at the meeting decide amongst themselves who will chair the meeting. It's always helpful if you can advise someone prior to the meeting that you won't be present, so they've got time to prepare for that chair role, but it's not mandatory.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan.
If I may offer support as well, I'm more than happy to do the same thing as I did for Stuart today and step in if need be as a default. But if there are any councillor who feel on the day that they would like to step in more than so than me, then that's fine too.
Thank you, Worship. So we'll just move on into item 1, which is a request for funding from Insert Coin to Play, the charitable trust. There needs to be an amendment to this recommendation simply because we're not all the councillors are on this committee, so we can't make a council decision. So the amendment will be that the Community Wellbeing Committee endorse the proposal and grant the funding request for $24,360 in principle. And bullet point 2, that the Community Wellbeing Committee recommend to Council that it consider the funding request from Insert Coin to Play Charitable Trust of $24,360 as part of the long-term plan 2023 to 24. Development and deliberation and notes, if approved, the funding will be available effective from the 1st of July 2023. I'll just open it up to discussion.
Through you, Madam Chair, not long-term plan, annual plan.
Annual plan. Sorry. Thank you. So, Mark, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to introduce James Wards from the Insert Coin to Play Charitable Trust and Your Call. We're standing up here so that everyone at home can see us as well. So the purpose of the cover report that we've submitted is to table a request for funding from the Insert Coin to Play Charitable Trust and to provide information and data to assist the Council in evaluating the merit of this request. You'll see in the introduction, the funding applied for, as outlined in page 6 of the agenda, would enable the Insert Coin to Play Charitable Trust to contract Your Call to provide monthly opportunities for youth in the district to attend already very well supported gaming events. I have to add here that there is a real concern that these opportunities will no longer continue in the Gore district without any funding. These events provide a forum where youth can interact, learn teamwork, develop technology skills, cooperate, compete, and form friendships, as outlined in page 8 of the funding proposal and the agenda. We really want to talk about, to stress, how these events can help to alleviate some of the health issues we see in society, including the Gore district. You'll see there are some very disturbing key points that we've listed here. These health issues include social anxiety affecting 1 in 3 adolescents between 13 and 18 years old, but can also start in preteen years. According to the Health Promotion Agency, this social anxiety can be exacerbated by social media and isolation, and mental distress is at its highest amongst young people 15 to 24 years old. The correlation between that isolation and the anxiety is complicated. The anxiety causes isolation itself, and isolation can cause the anxiety as well. "50% of mental illness begins by age 14, and 3/4 begins by age 24, according to psychiatry.org. Te Whātau Ora have recently reported that in the 21-22 financial year, the 5-year age group with the highest rate of suspected self-inflicted deaths in Aotearoa was the 20 to 24 age group. Looking more locally now, Southern Health New Zealand data shows that as of June 2021, 21.3% of the total Southern population, accessing mental health and addiction services were under the age of 20. An evaluation of the Hokanui Huanui project recently reported an increase in people seeking specialist mental health support. And can I just say here, we're aware that there is an awful lot of good work going on locally through organisations such as the Hokanui Huanui and other mental health services. But I think it's fair to say that this is done on an individual basis. It's preventative health and not, it is preventative health, but what we are proposing through James's Your Call is not seeing the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. I'm going to move on to a possible solution with that said. So, Insert Coin to Play and Your Call agree that students are already gaming at home. They can game for too long. They can isolate themselves through gaming. and need to get outside to explore and play as well. They agree there needs to be a transition from individual play that we see to community play. And that is what this is all about, and it provides that balance. They model gaming as good in a more social setting and provide a forum for social gaming which results in a sense of belonging and of well-being, and resulting mental well-being. They also believe that esports or gaming provide a positive and safe medium to deal with life issues, an inclusive sense of community for all, valuable social connections, blind to external prejudices, a sense of community specific to their interests and sporting values, and a pathway into traditional support. And of course, supports their mental well-being. And James Ward will talk more about those community benefits. Some interesting data for you. With so many people currently gaming in New Zealand, 3.7 million people, there are a number of high school teams up and down the country participating in gaming events. By 2024, streaming and watching esports is expected to reach a global audience of 577 million, overtaking rugby. I believe the drop in the number of people watching Wales play at the moment would bring that about. Not going so well at the moment. No. So the early research that we've both done around the gaming was, quite frankly, quite negative. But there has been a certain shift towards a more positive outlook in the benefits of gaming. A recent survey done in 2022 by the Bond University in Queensland, Australia, talks about how New Zealanders view gaming as very favourable, and the belief in the benefits as well. And that was carried out with 1,000 participants, so quite a broad overview. When we talk about social media as well, a report by Mashable National Research Group and eMarketer talks about the gaming space has actually become the new social gathering place. And with those figures that we've already mentioned, it's easy to see why that's happened. Another benefit of this awesome initiative of James's as well is that they talk in his proposal on page 10 of the agenda about how a number of students that work with him not only support his events, but they salvage and recycle a large amount of e-waste locally. And that's done by the youth themselves to create more gaming computers for others moving forward. But that also enables them to learn some valuable computing skills as well, which can take them on moving forward. I'm going to hand over to James now to talk about some more specifics as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Quite the introduction. So I am James Ward. There's a lot of familiar faces in this room today where I've had the opportunity to talk to you over the years. I think we started sometime in March 2017 with Gore Corps. So that's going a wee while back. And we've been doing events just about every weekend. I'm here representing the Insert Coin to Play Charitable Trust today. We teamed up, while I've been running my events as Gore Corps, then Your Corps, in various regions over the years, we found that, there was a huge demand for what we were doing. We decided to team up with other interested parties and formulate the Insert Coin to Play Charitable Trust. The idea behind the name, I don't know if you remember arcade machines at fish and chip shops, If you wanted to play the game, you had to chuck in some money. You run out of money, it's game over. Same thing is applying to a lot of these kids. We believe accessibility to technology, there shouldn't be any barriers to that, particularly with how prevalent and how important it is to be so articulate with these devices in order to have a sufficient career path using these devices. Now, I do a lot of work with a lot of disadvantaged families and households, even with doing a lot of work contracted with a lot of youth mentoring for Rangatamariki. Our services are in such high demand. I'm a big believer in the spaces that we are providing for these kids, providing them with a huge amount of opportunities to make more friends and learn a lot more skills. If you actually look at page 2, the caption there, that's a photo of an esports tournament we did in Invercargill. That was the largest esports tournament in New Zealand history. Of those 10 kids there, or 10, 11, 9 of those lads are from Gore. Our first event, those 9 lads came to our first event in 2017 when we used to have them down at the round table hall. They were about this tall when they first came. They've been coming to every single event we've ever done since. And they have been helping me out with every single event since. They've been helping me out with 14-hour days out at our workshop. They live for it. They're part of the family. Everyone who walks through our doors becomes family. And we employ 2 of those lads now. We hope to employ the rest of them as we continue to grow. We're providing career pathways for these fellas. There's also providing educational opportunities as well. So what else should I touch base on? So I just want to address the fact that we don't spend all the time on computers. The computers that we set up at our events are essentially just a way to encourage youth to come down on their own initiative and get involved with the opportunities that we are providing. You know, to target teenagers and vulnerable kids, you know, we've really got to have a good incentive for them to find their own initiative to get down and come and see us. We need to be a welcoming environment. We need to be a fun environment. You know, and given with how big the video game industry is, we think it's a pretty good incentive for these kids to get down and get involved. But once they start to become more involved with our initiative, we welcome them the opportunity to get involved with helping build more computers out at our workshop with the rest of the crew from recycled e-waste. New Zealand throws out 97,000 tonnes of electronic waste into New Zealand landfill every year. We're looking to cut down on that. The amount of machines that are getting thrown out that are still perfectly usable, that we can use for the purposes of our initiative, is extraordinary.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark and James. A very good presentation. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor McKenzie.
James, I'd like to make the comment that I know you do a lot for these young folk. I know you do a lot because, hey, you were just down the road from where I am. The different events you've had, like at the RSA, etc., I know you've got a core group of people there. Are you still getting new faces coming in, like young ones, etc.? You know, you've still got a, basically what I'm saying, you're still getting new faces come along and these young ones. It's not just a basic group sort of thing.
We've only got 20 computers.
Yeah.
So, for example, our events that are getting funded in Invercargill, I put the post up on Monday, they're all gone by Tuesday. It's a mad dash to get those tickets, you know. So, obviously, you know, there's only a certain amount of hours in the day, a certain amount of days in the weekend. Our goal is to get more computers, bigger events, 20, 40, 60 machines. For every 20 computers we get, we can employ 2 more staff. You know, we see this as a real career pathway and a real industry for these young fellas. Because I certainly can't do it on my own. There's no one else I'd rather employ than these fellas that have been helping out at every opportunity that's been available to them.
Thank you, James.
Councillor Richard McPhail.
Yeah, thank you, James, for your presentation. I have seen it a few times now. I probably should declare that I have been involved in some of his, where he's looked for some money before through RSA. So, but the question I'll probably ask you, and probably the other councillors will be thinking about, is so what other groups are we looking at getting funding from as well? Like where else are you doing your funding applications? I know we've got the solely for the Gore, but obviously this is bigger than 12 events just for Gore. So just in regard to other funding applications and other money that's coming in.
So we've got a huge amount of demand everywhere. I mean, I'm off on March 4th to Oamaru, you know, because Aranga Tamariki wants us up there because there's just nothing up there for the kids, you know. But what we're providing, you know, in a space where there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of opportunities. The opportunities that we are providing are distinctively unique in almost every region we go to. We are receiving some funding. Our events in Bluff, we've got 12 free events funded in Bluff by Tepu Tahi Tanga, and we've got the Invercargill City Council funding 12 events at the ILT Stadium Southend. We have a funding application currently in with the Lotteries Commission for Matara for 12 events. And yeah, Gore, I'm seeing you guys here today in regards to that. And yeah, we've got to get some plans together for Balclutha, which we're looking to get more involved up there. We've done a large number of events there as well. So that's what we've currently got on the cards. But we're looking to get Gore kicked back into life. I'd just like to state the fact that this is where it all started. This is a distinctively Gore initiative. This has got Gore written all over it. It's where it started, and I'm bloody proud of that fact.
Thank you, James. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chair. James, well done. I completely see where you're coming from. I remember when I was the councillor on the Youth Council, and you were literally then Gore Core, and you did so much. And the thing that really impressed me about how you engaged with the kids, you didn't actually just keep them playing the games all the time. There were considerable breaks, and you actually had them getting up and doing physical activities. And I think that's really important. I'd be really keen as a councillor to see something come out of this for the kids in our district, considering that I'm sure I knew all of those. I probably don't recognise the faces any longer, but I would know those children. The one thing I do see amongst those people that you had previously presented to was the Menzies College principal, Kath Luoni, and I read her comment, and as a person that I have total respect for, I can see that she also saw the benefits to her community and the children at her school as well. And, you know, given that it started in Gore and you do have Gore children, sorry, I'll rephrase that, Gore young people working alongside you, it says a lot. So well done.
Any other questions? Councillor Mackenzie.
I might chuck one at Mark. You knew I was going to do that, didn't you?
I did.
In your opinion, can you see the benefit to these young ones in communication skills?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'll interrupt you again. You know, because people will say they're sitting at computer screens, but James, and you've seen this, that they're actually talking and communicating with each other rather than using an appliance or a phone or whatever.
You'll see from the comments I made under personal experience that actually, coming back a step, James supported the Youth Council at event locally at the RSA, where the proceeds from that event went towards Pink Shirt Day, which the Youth Council are very much a part of. Mm-hmm. So I went along to that event with youth councillors. I've got to say I had an amazing experience. It was great fun. So did the youth councillors, so did everyone that was there. But the one thing that stood out for me actually was when James told me about a young lad who was running a bit late, walked into the event, and the whole place just erupted and cheered as he walked through the door. And he then told me that that person never said a word when they first came to the events. And then this larger-than-life personality walked through the door. And you could see that reflected by all of the attendees as well. They were just loving every minute of it. They're not sitting there in front of the computers ignoring one another. There is so much noise in that forum. They're all having a blast. And as Councillor Reid said as well, there are times when they get up, they interact even more doing physical things. It really is an inspiring event to see.
Thank you, Mark. It's a concern I have, is young folk losing the art of communication face to face. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Phillips.
Thanks for your presentation, guys. And once again, I have had the pleasure of you before. The one thing that I'd like to know is your time frame on this, and you've applied for funding for the 23-24 annual plan. We are restrained on budget-wise, and we have probably other applications coming forward to the annual plan, and we have to make a serious decision about who we fund this to. Are we going to be hamstrung in the aspect of what month you want to start, or are you wanting to start now, or in a 12-month period, or are you going to start like to November to November, or?
Yeah, this certainly isn't our first rodeo. We've been doing a lot of these events. We've done around 93 since 2017 in the Gore district exclusively, which saw just short of 4,000 individual kids participate in those Gore events. So we do an event every weekend. You know, we slap another one up on Monday. Tickets are listed, promoted. They're all sold out by the weekend. So we're ready to start. You say jump, we jump. But like I say, we were aiming to do one a month just to, you know, drip feed it out. But if you wanted to get it all wrapped up annually before the end of the year, you know, we've got the opportunity to do a couple more on the holidays during the week. Saturdays might conflict with some sport types at certain times of the year. Yeah, so we could do, we're flexible, but we would like to do 12 within the year.
I guess bearing in mind the annual plan as well, then you know, the funding could potentially be there to start in July as well. But like James said, he's always been proactive about setting things up wherever they may be.
Is there any further discussion, Councillor Hosted?
Yeah, thanks, James and Mark. I just understand the mechanics of your budget and how it works. You've got equipment hire in there. How does Gore Corps and the Coin Trust, Concert Coin Trust, operate? Are they together, or is one funding the other, or how does that actually?
Yeah, so I started with your Corps, and what I discovered when it was always been my goal to make these events free. It was always a priority for me, but I always faced that constant hurdle. It was because I wasn't a non-profit or a charitable organisation, nobody wanted anything to do with us. So I made it a top priority to set up a charitable trust. I'm chairman of that trust. I've got two others on the trust. One of them is a Dr. Marcin Lipsky. He's got a PhD in sports science. And if you want to know the scientific benefit of gaming and health benefits from it, he's the man to talk to. He can tell you all the science behind that. We've got Jesse Hall, who's an award-winning accountant from Mallet Plains as well on the trust. But yeah, I'm now an operator of your Corps, which has been my baby since day one. And yeah, I'm just amazed that it's taken a star and we're still ticking. So brilliant. So just for clarification, so your Corps owns the equipment that's been hired? Yeah. Thank you. So your Corps has all the computers, take care of everything. You know, it employs the young fellas coming in to help and run the events. Basically, we're your one-stop shop. You want any of these computer events set up, we're the best in the whole country at. So. Okay. And just thinking about the annual plan process, will the trust have financials available for the council in that time? Yes, I have had some annual financials done. So if you want to see those, I'm happy to send them to you. Thank anytime you like. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Your Worship. Oh, Councillor Paul McPhail.
How you going, James? I've seen it before a few times. One of the things I was interested in is while these events are going on, have you got any wraparound support for if you see people in a situation where they're obviously in a problem? You know, have you got that built round in your whole plan?
Well, the last thing for us is building that trust to get them from just attendees at the events to now being part of the family, part of the crew. Now they're out at the workshop. You know, now we're kicking the can. We're doing some hard work. We're about building that trust. We're a crew. We're a squad. We're a group. We're a corps. But we are doing surveys as well. We're collecting some awesome information. You know, we've built these surveys. The kids love doing them. We give out some stickers. They do them at our computers, and we're getting some really good feedback and data that really isn't available anywhere else, because everyone told me the TikTok generation is not going to answer 30 to 40 questions on a survey. There's no way. They're doing it in less than 4 minutes. 4 minutes to get 30 to 40 questions answered. And we've got all that, we're collecting all that data. We plan to with these events too. If you guys are curious, any questions you want answered from your youth, we can get them answered for you. Many you like. But yeah, it's about building that trust. But one of the secret questions in the survey gets to the end. We're asking a question, do you ever think about self-harm or anything like that as well? If they answer yes to that question, there's a little hint in there to come talk to me. We're asking questions in this survey about, you know, do you look up to James and his Your Corps staff? You know, do you feel like you can talk to him about things that are bothering you? And an overwhelming majority of these people are saying yes, they do. You know, they're happy to come talk to us about any issues that they have because they feel at home when they're at our events. You know.
Okay, I was just thinking of the next step. You know, if someone comes to you, having that support network there with this would be great to have. That
yeah, we want to create a foundation for other youth organisations to get involved. This is a platform. This is a foundation. We're openly invite anyone else to get involved. They're all in the same room. We've done all one place. You know.
No, that's cool. I'm just wondering how you're working it with it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, good question. Thanks.
Obviously, there's potential for James to act as a conduit as well for those mental health services and counselling. So,
Your Worship, and then Councillor Highstead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In light of stepping on other councillors' toes, are you tied to the RSA in terms of a location for a venue?
RSA. That's just where we've done them for the last 3 years. We were enormously grateful to have the support from the RSA over that time. But we can set up anywhere where there's a roof over our head and power and internet. We're under no obligation currently to be at the RSA other than the fact that it's a marvellous venue. You know, awesome place. And
there's a place opening just next door, which we believe have the ownership under, so that might be an option to save us some money if this resolution does end up going through, and offering that up, just as a thought.
Great thought. Councillor Highstead.
I think I know the answer to the question, but I'll ask it anyway. And going forward, this is a 12-month proposal. Is there any pathways to sustainability, or is it always going to be community funding to fund this? Like, does the model get to a scale where it's sustainable, or are you always going to be reliant on funders such as the Quarterslip Council? Because the concern is if we're considering it and it's only for 12 months and then it stops, where to from there?
yeah. Well, what I've managed to accomplish thus far, where I started 5 years ago, where I am now, you know, I spent $800 on 25 of the worst laptops you've ever seen in your life, and managed to create this out of that. I'm confident if we're able to sustain what we've got going on, 20 machines, you know, we've got enough to get something going, but if we can get 40, we've already doubled capacity. At 60, we can start charging X amount. Like I say, we need to be charging 60 per kid if we've got 20 machines, but if we've turned 20 into 60, now we can start charging 20 per head. You know, 60 is just too much for families to afford, but if more machines means we can lower the door charge, we've got to bring the door charge back. But I would like to think, you know, we've got the trust, we've got everything, we start to get a bit more publicity, a bit more exposure, you know, people really want to back it, support it, you know, the opportunities for corporate sponsorship are there as well, once we start, you know, really making a racket and really getting our name out there.
Any further discussion? Would someone like to put the motion? Councillor Reid. Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Richard McPhail. All in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, James, and to you, Mark, too. I think it's a very worthwhile cause, and I've seen some of the children and spoken to them that have been to this program, and you do a lot for mental health in this district. So I'm very pleased that this has gone through. Thank you.
thank you, everyone.
Item number 2 is Parks and Recreation, and we'll take the reports as tabled. Would you like to speak to your report, Kate? Is there any questions? Councillor Reid.
Hi, Keith. I was just reading your report over the weekend, and funnily enough, I'd just come back from a visit to Charlton Park, and I noticed the big gap, and obviously you're going to be using that as an entry point for machinery. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That area was of the original development plan developed by APIS. In fact, 2009
Yeah, I appreciate that, thank you. But the one thing I did notice, it was particularly windy, and I almost ended up in East Gore because it was just straight through. And I just wondered is there any way that that could be slightly alleviated?
The red paddock has planting around it, but it's probably at a much younger state than some of the existing. So I think long term that there will be more planting.
That would be good. Thank you.
Councillor Hovell and then Councillor Richard McPhail.
I note that the parks management plans are in the process of being updated, and the intent is that they'll come back to the committee for final review and sign off. Can we please have a briefing part of the way through the process highlighting the key issues in case we want to give some guidance on that at that stage?
Thank you. Councillor McPhail.
Yes, just through the Madam Chair there. Keith, great job. Everywhere I go, I hear good stuff, really good stuff about what's happening around town. And looking at your report here, there was about 3 items in there that jumped out that have actually have been commented on to me in recent times, including Donmore Park, the cemetery, and Mad-High Ridge. Now, the only other comment I have here is around that Mad-High Ridge landscaping, with the fact that it's over and above the current workload of you guys. How do we go forward on that? Like, is that going to be planned out, and whether it's a question can be answered either by the CEO or our Parks Manager?
Through you, Madam Chair. Look, I'm pleased you raised that, Councillor McPhail, because I was going to give a shout out to the Parks and Reserves team. They've done a fantastic job, and it's now complete with the landscaping. It's well worth a visit. Keith commandeered the whole crew, the whole department, and blew it out in one whole day. It looked stunning, and it was that was a planned contribution by the council as part of its joint venture with the Kingston Lifestyle Family Trust. We thought we could do the landscaping, and Keith has got extensive experience prior to coming to us with commercial level landscaping in a residential setting, and has performed really well with his team. So it has been done, and we have just today, the developer or the Kingston Lifestyle Trust has applied for completion under the Resource Management Act for certification, so then we can issue title to the sections.
Any further comments or discussion? Would someone like to move that the report be received? Thank you, Councillor Highstead, and thank you, Councillor Reid, seconding. And thank you, Keith, for that. It's great to see the landscape has begun around the new building, the new library building. All in favour of that recommendation, please say aye. Against? Carried. We move on to item 3, the General Managed Communications Customer Support. And as Sonia's not here, we'll just take that as tabled. And is there any discussion that perhaps our CEO could respond to? Or Mr. Capel. Or Caitlin.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak to this report, Caitlin?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can try my best, although I'm not directly involved with a few of the projects, but I can try answer any questions any councillors have.
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
I just had two questions actually with the storyboard. First of all, are the Lions contributing to that storyboard, or is that solely us paying for that storyboard? Do we have any, is it a joint project, or is it just a consultation on that one? Unsure?
That is a Sonia question, sorry, I'm not sure.
That's cool. And the next one might be a Sonia question as well, but has there been consultation with local iwi as well? I see it includes stuff around the Matoda River, which they would probably be rather interested in contributing. Do we know if we've, or if it's just between Lions and Council at this stage?
I'm not involved in this entire project, so that again is a Sonia question, sorry.
That's actually fine, thank you.
I'll just ask the CEO to comment.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I'm very sure that Sonia has been working with Hokanui Rananga in that particular project.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will back you up on that one, Steve. I think I was at the initial meeting with the Lions Club and Keith, but he's already gone too. So, yes, it was a joint project, and the first thing Sonia said that she would do would be to consult with iwi around the river.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question about the signs. Are they going to be like the precedent for the signs for the whole district, or are they just a one-off?
Councillor Reid.
At the risk of being shot down in flames at another meeting, I'm pretty sure they were to be along the lines of the signs within the district.
I just got a question then. It appears that, and unbeknown to me, that Gore actually has a colour. And we discovered that the other night. And I'm just wondering if that colour would be incorporated in the sign as our known colour.
That's a Durex colour rather than our branding colours. So I think we only incorporate our branding colours into. I'd have to check with the branding guidelines, but I believe it's just the green that you see on there. Yeah. Yeah.
Any further comment? Councillor Phillips.
Oh, so then are the signs then going to be a standard sign for other signs that may be wanting to put up around their district? Just the question is that if we have a standard sign, colour, etc., then other groups who want to maybe apply to put a sign up, like the Matara Community Board, for instance, then they have a known colour, sign, brand, etc., to run by.
Mr. Perrin.
Through you, Madam Chair. Look, I can't categorically answer, but I do categorically know Sonia's view on this, and she does like standardisation and not a proliferation of variants. So I would venture to suggest this type of sign she's promoting, she has in her mind that other signing opportunities would follow a similar style.
Any further discussion? Councillor Richard McFarlane.
Just a comment leading on from what Neville said there in regard to the signage, and I know Jim's down the back there. We are looking at signage around the precinct, aren't we, in developments? So will that be the same as this?
Haven't had that discussion yet.
Okay. Yeah, I just know that we are going to have panels and different things that lead around various areas there, isn't there? Well, hopefully. Maybe.
Councillor Gardiner.
Just a comment on that. I don't think it shows Donald Park.
Is that a question?
Yeah, it doesn't show Donald Park on that, was that just an example?
Does it show Donald Park? What map?
I've got hard copy. My eyes don't.
Jason.
But
No trout, not real trout.
Madam Chair, while you're looking, I wonder how many trout there are at Dollarmore Park.
Quite a few crocodiles.
And if there aren't any trout, it don't need to be shown.
I believe there are native trout there. Do you have any comment, Steve, to that? No. I'm sorry. We'll take note of that, Councillor Gardine. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I travel around the country, it's probably an odd obsession, but I seem to take photos of signs and from other districts and towns, and I have one here of Cromwell, and their surrounding area sign in Cromwell in the main CBD has got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 23 key points to go to. So the other thing is that this is a specific one to the trout, and maybe somewhere along the line, if this is going to be a standard sign, that we can set one up somewhere else, and so on. So with the specific points pointing down to the pump track in Matara, etc. Just for point of interest. Sorry.
You make a good point, Councillor Phillips. I think I'd like to say well done to Gore Host Lions Clubs for pushing this initiative. It's really good to see that up there. Would somebody like to move that the report be received? Or do you have a question?
Just one more question, and this might not be to be answered in the room, but around the community engagement / consultation, I see there's a list here. Is there any further explanation of what the kind of those may involve? More thinking about the recycling waste, if there's anything kind of in the near future pipeline. Do we have any? Those are one of the projects that you're involved in.
As in, sorry, that was really loud. As in, is there going to be like an in-depth report as to the strategies that we would implement to roll those out, or?
Yeah, I guess where are we at with that community engagement / consultation, or is it more of just a list of the things that Sonia's working through? It's just very vague.
This is a list of things that we're working through at present.
Cool, thank you.
Jason, can I ask you to comment, please?
Yeah, no problem. I was just going to confirm that was the case, that we will bring back to the next council meeting update on the Rethinking Waste project, and from that point we'll be starting to go out and do some consultation on those options.
Thank you, Jason. Any further discussion? Could I have someone move the report be received? Councillor Hovell and your worship. All in favour? Against? Carried. Move on to item 4, the report from the District Arts and Heritage Curator. Jim, would you like to comment to your report as tabled?
Madam Chair, no, I think if there's any questions, that's fine, but I think everything's probably outlined in the report.
It's a very good report, thank you. Is there any questions, please, for Jim? Or comments? Your worship?
Just, I guess I'd like to say that it looks like there's been awesome progress on the Muriwai Centre. You can see the work outside, which is fantastic. I guess just asking whether that project is on track as scheduled, if there's any issues or any upcoming risks.
Through the chair, we're really pleased with the progress. Everybody's excelled themselves. I think every contractor that's been on site has delivered, and civil management has been particularly good in this regard. So we're very pleased with progress. I think we're well on track. The steering committee, project control group, has been pretty happy with the reports that come through. No, we're very confident. We're very pleased.
Thank you, Jim. Any further comments? Councillor Reid.
If there's no further comments, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Seconder, Councillor Highstead. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5, the report from the Library Manager, Lorraine. Do you have anything to add to your report, Lorraine, that's tabled? Any further discussion? Thank you, Lorraine. I can actually reiterate what Councillor Reid was saying, and I think it's wonderful to see books on the shelves in there and a lot of good comments from the community. So well done to you for all the hard work. Thank you. Item 6, we just move on to events. Sorry about that. Would somebody like to move the report be received? Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Reid, all in favour? Thank you. So just move on to events. Is this you, Caitlin? Or
Yes.
Jess?
Hello, thank you. Oh, that's quite loud, sorry. So I think pretty much it's very simple, but we had some very successful events at the end of last year, post-COVID cancellations, and it did become quite evident the capacity from a staffing perspective. It's quite difficult to achieve the level that we are trying to give to the community and the public. So one thing I would like to put to the council to consider for the next annual plan is just re-looking at that event strategy that you enacted a few years ago and possibly considering a more permanent solution to that. We do have someone potentially lined up for the events assistant role that is being funded through the reserve money that I didn't use last year because of the cancellations. So hopefully that works out and they come along, but that will only be for 1 year. So it will still need to be thought about, at least in some respect, for the next annual plan. As I've been meeting new events organisers and connections within the community in the past few months, there's become a real theme of businesses are finding it harder and harder to offer support to events because of all the ongoing struggles, and more events organisers are now going to be looking to the council for support. One thing I would love to see in the future is that we open some kind of contestable fund that people can just apply to throughout the year and do an online application or some sort of paper form application to ask for a set amount of money, and then maybe there's a small committee that considers that, and then that would also remove having to have people come directly to your committee meetings and do a full presentation, unless I guess they were asking for a significant sum of money, in which case you could get them to come along and, you know, argue their case essentially. But we're looking like we're going to have another very busy year, and On the Fly is getting a bit of a rejudge to be more fishing focused. We want to really play on our brown trout capital fishing reputation. So to do that, I've actually taken a step backwards to take that step forwards. So this year we are looking at a slightly smaller event. There's going to be less vendors than you might have seen in 2021. And that's because I want to pare back to a core that is easily understandable to our market. We really want our audience to understand what the event is about. We want it to have a clear identity, which I think it was kind of jumbled between all the different events organisers putting their own stamp on it. So yeah, if you're wondering why it's a bit smaller, it's so that we can set a really solid foundation and then grow on it in the years to come.
Thank you, Jess. Any questions for Jessica? Councillor Richard McPhail.
Thanks, Jess, and through Madam Chairman to you. Just regarding Tussock Country, obviously it was big news, and we had starts and stops. We're obviously still got our foot carefully in that camp and working with them and engaging with them, and because there was investment in there, and you know, where are we at with that? I see we're looking at
looking at ways to further enhance our involvement in that busking vibe for the central business area, and obviously that would encourage maybe some change in with how we lay it out. So I'm sort of just interested in elaborating a little bit for us where we're heading. Can you help us with that?
I can certainly try. So I attend Tussock Country's monthly board meeting. It's the last Wednesday of every month, and they go through their progress and their plans for the upcoming event. Obviously, yes, we do have Freeze Your Bits Off busking, which they're marking as a cornerstone event for Tussock Country. This will be my first time organising one, so again, it's a bit of a feel how it goes before I start making any significant plans or changes for it. I think they have some really big goals and dreams that they are going to be capable of achieving, but they will need support. I think we are probably looking to be quite heavily involved for a few more years to come until they become more self-sufficient. I do think something that we can compare to is actually the Napier Art Deco Festival. As like a cross comparison, they started off very small with lots of different events, and it was just a board of trustees that did all the work. And then gradually with council support and then more and more investment, it became the huge thing that it is today. So I think looking at them as kind of a case study will kind of give us an idea of what our own involvement might be for Tussock, if that kind of answers your question.
Thank you, Jess. Does that answer your question, Councillor McPhail?
Just the fact that we, really the statement from me is that we endorse that. We've invested and we've had a lot of input there, and I dare say that Councillor Reid can add with that, but anything, any support that we can give from council, from this group, I totally support. So,
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Probably should have declared that I am a trustee on that board in a private capacity, but Freeze Your Bits Off has always been supported by the council, and I think it was a council initiative when it first started, way back when. Maybe a little bit, yes, I think so. Could be wrong, but anyway. And I guess the thing is with Tussock Country, we've got a great program. It's increased by about 40% on top of the last program. The time frame's expanded over not just Queen's Birthday weekend, but week either side pretty much, give or take the odd few days. So there's lots of things for the community to be involved in that don't always relate to country music either. There's other things that have been organised, and we are trying to be as self-sufficient as we can as soon as possible, but of course we've only been able to have one event at this stage due to COVID, and we came out of that pretty well with lots of interest and a lot of repeat business we hope in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Any further discussion?
that's my question now. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Any further discussion? Your Worship.
Just a question for Jess. Is there any requirement for council participation at any of those three events in particular that might be good to gauge with councillors now? Or is it just kind of voluntary?
It is completely voluntary. Freeze Your Bits Off busking would be good to have someone there in an official capacity just to kind of endorse it and show that it is our event, it's owned by us. I do think On the Fly is a good opportunity for people to engage with the community if that is something that you're interested in, but otherwise, no, there's no obligation. It would be completely voluntary.
Thank you, Jess. Any further discussion? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it would be a good idea for all councillors to have a fly fishing competition between each other. All standing on the riverbank with the fly rod.
I'll let you organise that, Councillor Phillips. Thank you, Jess. And all I can say is that people they were disappointed. They thought that we weren't going to hold On the Fly because it was usually around the fly-in at Mandeville. And I know that the date's changed, so I was happy to be able to tell people no, it hasn't been cancelled this year. So, thank you. Would someone like to move that the report be received, please? Thank you, Councillor Paul McPhail. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Reid. All in favour? Against? Carried. So now item 7, the report from the Visitor Services Team Leader, Sharon, and I see that Sharon isn't here, so we'll just table that report, and I'll ask someone to move that the report be received. Unless there's anything urgent that someone would like to raise. Councillor Hosted. Happy to move. And seconder. Thank you, Keith Hovell. Councillor Hovell. All in favour? Pass. Item 8 is a report from the Aquatic Services Manager, Martin. I see Martin is here. Would you like to speak to your report, Martin, or we'll table it as read and ask questions?
Through you, Madam Chair, just an update. I did mention in the report about the ice rink starting up, the chiller system starting up. So I can confirm that we have started the chiller unit for the ice rink to start producing ice as of today. As usual, when you start something up when it's been sitting for a while, we've had a few curveballs this morning, hence there's a little bit of dust on me from sorting a few issues out. But we do have critical spares in the complex which have solved most of those issues at this stage. Happy for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? You wish it?
Just curiosity more than anything else. When will the ice rink be ready for use? How long does it take?
Yeah, so for us to produce ice, first of all, we obviously have to get that temperature down on the base. Currently that sits at 23 degrees. We need to get that to -2 before we can start putting water on to freeze. We are looking at about 3 to 4 weeks for that to occur.
And is that weather dependent as well?
That is also weather permitted. The external outside temperature at the moment is great for producing ice. It's a little bit cooler. Let's just fingers crossed we don't have too many of those 30 degrees over the next wee while.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Martin. Thanks for the report. Just interested in seeing how you're going with the carbon dioxide.
Yeah, interestingly, the industry that wasn't really commented in the media, pools do require CO2 for pH control. Currently, we've changed our process, so we used to wait until there was 4 empty before we restock. So we've changed that process to make sure we have some in hand. We are still investigating other options. However, that comes down to 2 factors really: the space we have to be able to put in a new system, and also the cost for that system. So we have currently 2 people giving us some information around that.
Thank you. The other question is when that availability of the carbon dioxide picks up again, are you expecting an increase in costs, or is that naive to ask that?
The old cost. I think what's been seen in the past, as soon as there's a restriction on any product, there is a cost increase. So that is inevitable at some stage. As to what that looks like, that'll be a factor to take in whether we pursue another option or not as well.
Any further questions? Would someone like to move that the report be received, please? Councillor Hovell. Are you moving, or are you wanting to speak? You're moving? Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Phillips. All in favour? Item number 9 is the travel assistance for the Gold Country Music Queen. This report was by the Chief Executive. Would you like to comment on this, Steve?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Reasonably straightforward, I think. It's been a combination of COVID-19 and uncertainty of travel, and therefore higher travel costs, because you had to book a lot closer to the actual event. And the council has had a very strong and long association with the Gore Country Music Club, and the Country Music Queen event has oscillated between being in its own right and then the Young Ambassador Award that the council ran for some years, and now it's back to the Queen. And given that the Mayor this time round won't be travelling to Tamworth, I thought that the request seemed to be reasonable in the circumstances, and there's sufficient unique circumstances at play to avoid a repetition in the future, so there's no fear of creating a precedent.
Thank you. Are there any questions, please? Councillor Reid?
I don't have a question, but given that Tamworth is our sister city, I think it behoves us to send our country music queen with every little bit of help she can get, and I'm sure she'll represent us very well, and I'm happy to move that recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Could I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second it, but can we second it on that recommendation, that we actually approve it?
Yes, we can, because the grants actually are coming through this committee as well, so this is treated like a grant.
Yep.
Through you, Madam Chair, this will be a recommendation that goes to full council for sign-off.
Okay, I'm happy to second that.
So does that mean we need to change this recommendation? Because we've got that the council approve.
Not really, Madam Chair, because you're recommending the council approve, and so the minutes will have that recommendation. The recommendation from this committee is that the council approve. It goes to the full council, and the council, if they agrees with that recommendation, then it's approving it and it's passed.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So we have a mover and a seconder. Are we all in favour?
Can we have some discussion? Is that right?
You'd like further discussion?
I know we're getting long in the tooth with the... so there's a couple of, I guess, points to point out here that I just would love some clarification on. The first, I don't need any clarification, but the Country Music Queen has actually already gone and spent this money already. So I understand that there's not much precedent in it happening again, but it does set a dangerous precedent about people spending money ahead of the council approving it. So I just wanted to make councillors very aware of that. The second point was, it says that the committee has a surplus of $17,050. So was that the overall cost, was that then close to $2,500? Is that correct for those flights? Just checking the numbers there. Yeah, so, yeah, sorry, yeah, sorry. Very different numbers. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to make councillors aware that it just, if we approve this, it opens us up to kind of a precedent that you can spend council money and then ask for forgiveness rather than permission. That's the only issue that I have with this. But I do hear Councillor Reid's points around they are our sister city, and the Country Music Queen is a good initiative for the council.
Would you like to go, Councillor Reid and Councillor Phillips?
I think this is probably one of those things that because they weren't attending last year, that possibly it hasn't come. I'm not sure how it's worked in the past. Perhaps that's a question for the Chief Executive. Has this ever happened before when it's been retrospectively granted?
No.
Through Madam Chair, no. I think the key thing here is that the on again, off again, can we travel? The date of the letter was 9 December. By that stage, we pretty much had closed down for the year. And I think you've got to place yourself in the shoes of the requester. They're probably not aware of the intricacies of council government processes and the fact that this council wouldn't be meeting until February. And they possibly thought it could have been signed off by myself or the Mayor, but ultimately had to go to the full council. So as Worship's point is taken, but I think in this case it's just they had a commitment to go, and obviously we're hoping the council would fund it. But the date of the letter suggests that they were in a state of quandary and probably, didn't realise that the council, if you missed the December agenda, you wouldn't put this before council until, or the committee, should I say, until February.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think it's important too that the letter does request for sponsorship. They're asking, so we can decline, and the committee would use its surplus funds. So take the point, but I think we've all got our eyes wide open on this one. It's a situation that's arisen, and air travel has increased. So I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Highstead. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm 3 years ago, 6 years ago, we had a grants committee. We had a basic idea about the money that was coming to us, cost-wise. Currently now, we're just getting these sort of situations, and we just had a presentation earlier on for 25k, without really any knowledge of what our budget would be from the staff for the year, what could be surplus and what could be grant out. So this could be a case of we could put it in the grant as a permanent $1,000 grant off for the flights for the Tamworth Queen to go to Tamworth year by year as part of the grants. But we haven't got a list, if you know what I mean. Before we did, we had a rough idea of what their grants were going to come up to, what they were. A rough order of cost, but currently now we're just sort of pulling things out of the sky. How far do we go in the year? Do we get to a point where we've spent $100,000 in grants? No, I don't think so. But would it be sort of prudent that we have some sort of rough order of idea of cost for the year?
I'll just pass it over to the CEO.
Through you, Madam Chair. The council has a schedule of grants, and it's listed in its annual plan, an LTP, and it's a schedule of the amounts and the organisations that receive those grants, and they are pretty much year on year. These requests are, they're the one-offs, and you're right, Councillor Phillips, we did have a grant subcommittee, and it, in my humble view, it proved to be very effective because it was a gatekeeper on behalf of the council, and requests were funnelled through that subcommittee. That's new requests for funding, and we have a funding application form. But that particular subcommittee fell away following the 2020 floods, change of CFO. I sort of started it and left the CFO, then of course Luke departed, and then we had the floods, and then we had a focus on repair. And so this committee, I believe, could, or the council should encourage a grant subcommittee to be established and pick up the good work that the former committee did. And the idea behind that is to satisfy the council that grants currently made to those organisations are still fit for purpose and appropriate, and secondly, to be the first port of call to ascertain the credibility of any funding request that may come through the door. So we don't have a pool of money that's just spare that the council can allocate. We have set grants that have stood the test of time for council to continue to invest in, and then we have these others that come through the door through various guises that require the council to make a decision on. But the grant subcommittee is the ideal vehicle for that to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips, and I think we do need further discussion about a grants committee. Yes, Rex.
Can I just add to the Chief Executive's comments, and it was actually a topic of conversation at the Senior Management Team's meeting on Monday with regards to how we may wish to have this broader conversation with Council as part of an LTP discussion and as part of where it fits in within the activities, the allocation, and then, as the Chief Executive has mentioned, the subcommittee or a grant subcommittee to be able to deliver on what is worked through that LTP process.
Councillor Hovell.
We do, of course, have a community grants policy of 2012, and in summary, what it says is that the council may consider applications outside of the long-term or annual planning process for sums up to $2,000. If it's above that, then it must be considered as part of the next annual plan. Interestingly, that if it is over the $2,000, then a copy of audited financial statements need to be submitted as part of any requests for funds. I guess what I'm trying to highlight is that it's a policy of 2012. It's overdue to be looked at again, and so I think the wider consideration of the way that we deal with community grants needs to have regard to that policy too.
Councillor Hosted.
Just in response to Councillor Phillips, I think, you know, we're talking about $800 here for this particular situation, and the earlier situation referred to the 25,000. That's why it's so important that the recommendation that the Chair moved ensured that that was considered as part of an annual plan process, because grants committee or not, we need a budget and we need to have our eye on the total budget, and the time to do that is annual plan and long-term plan. So we haven't in fact approved the 25k. That's got to get through the annual plan process, and with all the other challenges we're going to face at that time. So I have a bit of confidence here, and this is an $800 one-off, and I think point's well made, but we should probably move on.
Thank you, Councillor Hosted. Your Worship.
Sorry, I don't mean to slow it down, and I know it is a sum of money that falls lower than the policy, but we are coming into an annual plan where we are going to look at a significant rate rise, so any dollar will count. So I think a grants committee needs to be seriously considered here at a matter of urgency, so we can get on top of some of our other grants, so we've got lesser workload come annual plan time to sort through those grants, some of which we may need to cut back on at least this year to look out for our ratepayers. So I guess I'd like to add to the recommendation, if I could, that move the motion. I'm happy to move the motion that we provide financial assistance in the sum of $800, but also that the council considers a. Have you already moved the motion? Sorry. Could I please add a recommendation then of, if that one is to pass, of us setting up a grants committee at the council. But we can go through the first motion first and then add a second recommendation if that's all right.
So you'd like to move that we set up you want to amend this recommendation? Is that right, Your Worship?
We can go through this motion and then I can push the second recommendation after this motion. Sorry, I didn't realise it had been started by, it had been moved already. My
Councillor
apologies.
Reid, are you happy to amend that motion? Are you happy to second it, Councillor Richard McPhail? You did second it earlier on. Are you not happy to second this? Okay.
I'm happy to second it. So the motion, as it was changed, was the one that's written there, and then also the council considers setting up a subcommittee, a grant subcommittee.
Yes, it's moved and seconded, and can I just ask all in favour?
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, I think there's a mover and seconder, but I understand that Councillor Reid, as the initial mover, was happy to go that way, but Councillor McPhail, as seconder, wasn't. So perhaps for process, Madam Chair, if you put the original motion, and then if His Worship wants to raise a supplementary motion and find a seconder, then that can be the subject of a separate vote. So,
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I'll put the motion that the council approve financial assistance in the sum of $800 to enable Gore Country Music Queen to attend the Tamworth Country Music Festival, which was in January 2023. In January 2003. I put that motion. Councillor Reid, you happy to move that motion? And Councillor Richmond Fowle second. All in favour? Now we have a supplementary motion that Council sets up a grants committee to look at these funds going forward. Is that correct?
Yes, and as Councillor Highstead rightly pointed out, it would sit under this committee that we're currently in.
Under this committee, yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, can I seek clarification? You're asking for a subcommittee to this committee be established, or you're asking Council to establish a subcommittee to this committee?
Yes.
Will you also be asking and providing some direction as to what the terms of reference for that subcommittee are? And with respect to the membership of that subcommittee, is it the full committee, or is it a sub? Is it less members than this full committee? Like from a process perspective, it is critical that it is very clear to staff to provide that guidance to then assist with the writing of the report that will need to come back to Council to fulfil that request. The other thing I would ask is you give consideration to if the grants subcommittee is solely to look at the existing grants, or is it to look at the amount of money that is in the grants budget as per the current annual plan? All of those things that need to be provided with some guidance and I suppose direction, because I'm unsure sitting here today, we're having some responsibility for this as to what you are asking a grant subcommittee to be doing.
Can I ask you to answer that, please, as CEO?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think the correct motion that I think you should be passing is that the establishment of a grant subcommittee be the subject of a staff report to be placed on the next council agenda, because we have actually the old grant subcommittee had its terms of reference and had quite a clear mandate in which to operate, which I would resurrect and review and put as part of that report that goes to the council. So it would include a smaller membership to be determined by this particular committee, but yeah, all the infrastructure was in place and it can be resurrected, but it just needs to be formally constituted by the new council.
So the supplementary recommendation is that the establishment of a grant subcommittee to be determined by this committee.
Madam Chair, I think the motion would be that the issue of the potential establishment of a grants subcommittee be the subject of a staff report to be placed on the next council meeting agenda.
On a full council,
yes.
Not this committee, full
yes,
council.
Full council.
Okay.
That report will make it clear that once a subcommittee, if it's established, will report back through this committee.
Okay. Are you happy to move that, Your Worship? Seconded, Councillor Phillips. All in favour? Or would you like the recommendation read again? You're happy with that? Thank you. All in favour? Carried. So our last item is the Gore District Socio-Economic Data Community Compass Baseline Report for February 2023. Would you like to speak to this, Rex?
Through Madam Chair, I'll take it as read, but I just want to highlight 4 points. I suppose first is paragraph 2.2. For correctness, it was at its 21 February extraordinary meeting. The council adopted the terms of reference. That was today. So this report was written in anticipation that it would have been adopted a week ago. But I do want to point out that the purpose of this report is based on what was signed off as part of those terms of reference, which was one of the key responsibilities for this committee, in those terms of reference is to monitor data informing the Gore District's socio-demographics and social climate to assess current and future impacts. So that's why this is here, to fulfil one of the key responsibilities of the committee. The second point I'd make is that the source of data is, as stated, from .loves Data, which is a reputable data company which accesses the information from a wide variety of sources, so over a wide period of time. So it is data that is valid and has been validated. The third point I would make refers to paragraph 2.7, which is really just again reiterating that this is the start of a journey with respect to this information, that it's baseline data as of what we have got in current data today, and actually the value of it for you as a council and for other external government agencies and other social external agencies who will be interested in this, will be what this looks like in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months from a comparative perspective. And as I've mentioned in the report there on 2.8,